So I got this awesome poster from an artist named Christopher Keiko, and I mean, I haven't put it up, it's just sitting here on my desk. But with the Ultra Bonus unlock starting very soon here in Pokemon Go, in Week 3, we know that Gen 5 Pokemon from the Unova region are launching in Pokemon Go. So, right here in this chunk of Pokemon, this is all the Pokemon, by the way. In this chunk, Gen 5, there are some new ones to keep an eye on. So let's get into it. So for today, I want to focus on some of the best Pokemon coming in Gen 5 for PvE, for raids, or for gym battles, but mostly for raids. We'll talk about PvP Pokemon in another battle, We'll talk about PvP Pokemon in another video, but for now we're focusing on some of the strongest Pokemon of their type to be coming in Gen 5. So before we start with that, I just want to give you some baseline base stats so you can have an idea when I talk about these new Pokemon's attack stats, defense stats, HP, where they compare to Pokemon that you're familiar with now. So at the very top of the attack stat, highest attack in Pokemon Go, Deoxys attack form 414. But of course we don't really do anything with Deoxys attack form because the rest of its stats are so terrible. So for like real baseline, Mewtwo has 300 base attack. Mewtwo, 300 base attack. Rampardos has 295 base attack. Rayquaza, 284. Gengar, 261. Tyranitar, 251. So anything around 250 or above is great, like top tier attack stat for Pokemon Go. Defense and HP we're not going to talk too much about since we're really looking at best attackers in this video, but to give you an idea, Shuckle, the god, 396 base defense. Deoxys defense form, 330 base defense. Bastiodon, 286 base defense. Umbreon, 240 base defense. So again, 250-ish is like your top tier range. HP, Blissey, huge outlier at 496 base HP. Chansey, of course, right up there with it, 487 base HP. But those are special cases. Snorlax has 330 base HP. Lapras, 277 base HP. But again, we're mostly looking at attackers, so just keep that in mind. We're going to kick it off with the new king of fighting type damage, CONKELDURR. It's a new fighting type Pokemon, and it's strictly better than Machamp. 253 base attack, 233 base HP, and 158 base defense, compared to Machamp's 237, 207, 159. So in every way except for... Is this thing falling over already? In every way except for defense by 1 point, it's better than Machamp. I really need a new tripod here. Okay, I should say now that all of what I'm about to go over is based on assumed movesets. It's always possible that these Pokemon get terrible moves and therefore are not actually as good as they could be. You never know with Niantic, but hopefully these Pokemon will get these kind of ideal moves. So assuming CONKELDURR learns Counter and Dynamic Punch, it will be the new best fighting type, bar none. There are 3 fighting type legendary Pokemon coming with Gen 5. They're the 3 Musketeers, the Swords of Justice, Cobalion, Virizion, and Terrakion, and unfortunately, because none of them learn Counter or Dynamic Punch, they're not going to be great fighting type Pokemon. So CONKELDURR should be fairly easy to get. It's not expected to be a rare Pokemon. Its base form is Timber, it evolves then to Girder, and finally CONKELDURR, so be on the lookout for these Pokemon when they become available. Next up, we have a potential new king of ground type DPS, Excadrill. It's a ground and steel type Pokemon. Its base attack, 255, base defense, 242, base HP, 129. For comparison, Groudon's base attack is 270, but Earthquake is actually a really bad move for attacking in Pokemon Go. So assuming Excadrill gets Drill Run, a move that currently is only learned by Dunsparce, Rapidash, Seaking as a legacy move, and Fearow. Yeah, Pokemon that really can't take advantage of its stats. If Excadrill were to get Drill Run, it would be better DPS for ground type moves than Groudon. We also now have Earth Power in Pokemon Go, another move that Excadrill can learn, which is also even better than Drill Run. So with either Earth Power or Drill Run, Excadrill will outclass Groudon in ground type DPS. Plus, as a steel type, also has some added resistances. That's actually going to be important because there are a couple electric type legendary Pokemon in Gen 5 that Excadrill is going to be a great counter to. Excadrill evolves from Drillbur. It shouldn't be that rare, but you never know with Niantic. Mareep. Mareep was a rare Pokemon, and that just wasn't the case in the main series. So watch out for Drillbur. You're going to want those, and you're going to want the candies. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is Volcarona. It's a Bug and Fire-type Pokemon, and it has the stats to finally make Bug a viable attacking type in Pokemon Go. So, with 264 base attack, 189 base defense, and 198 base HP, Volcarona will be the best Bug-type attacker, assuming it gets Bug Bite and Bug Buzz, which are both available in its regular Level Up Learn set, so it's very likely that it's going to get those. But even with weaker moves like Struggle Bug or Signal Beam, it's still going to outclass the current best Bug-type attackers, which are Pinsir and Scizor, and it's even going to be better than the Bug and Steel-type Genesect, which is a mythical Pokemon that was introduced in Gen 5. So Volcarona should be available sooner than Genesect. We still have a lot of mythicals to get through before Genesect gets introduced in either research or EX raids or however they decide to do it. Volcarona will definitely be the best bug type even after Genesect is released. It is probably going to be pretty rare, as in Black and White version it was originally only available from an egg, so it's kind of a special Pokemon. Larvesta, the pre-evolution, was only available from an egg that was given to you in the game, so it could be an egg exclusive or it'll be probably very, very rare. The good news, if it's egg exclusive, is that when it hatches, you'll probably have decent IVs, so I don't know. It might be like Riolu, where it took me months to actually hatch one on my own. So keep an eye out for Larvesta in eggs when Gen 5 drops. We'll have a new great rock-type attacker in Archeops. It's one of the fossil Pokemon. It's rock and flying. 292 base attack, 139 base defense, 181 base HP. So a glass cannon like Rampardos, but with a massive, massive attack stat. So with Rock Throw and Rock Slide, it'll be just under Rampardos' DPS, but where it really shines is as a flying type attacker. Assuming it gets Wing Attack and Sky Attack, it will blow Moltres out of the water, or out of the sky. Moltres' DPS with Wing Attack and Sky Attack, 16.9. Archeops with Wing Attack and Sky Attack, 19.7. So huge jump there. Now in the main series, Archeops does have an ability that kind of nerfs it the same way that Slacking has Truant. It has an ability called Defeatist, which cuts its attack stats in half when its HP is below half. So I don't know how Niantic plans to introduce that, or if they even plan to honor that in Pokemon Go, but there's a chance that Archeops could get some kind of nerf to go along with that ability that it has in the main series. Archeops evolves from Archon, and it is a fossil Pokemon, so think of the rarity of like Cranidos, Shieldon right now. It's probably going to be fairly rare, fairly difficult to come across, but by the next Adventure Week event, you should have plenty of them. And finally, the last non-legendary Pokemon I want to talk about today is Chandelure. It's definitely a favorite, one of my favorite families in Gen 5. It's a Ghost and Fire-type Pokemon, 271 base attack, 182 base defense, 155 base HP. So with Hex and Shadow Ball, it competes with Gengar. They'll have very similar DPS, but Chandelure is slightly tankier, a little bit more bulky, so it will outlive Gengar and kind of outpace it. For comparison, Gengar has 261 base attack, 149 defense, 155 HP. So a little bit tankier for Chandelure, and very comparable DPS. Alright, now let's talk legendaries. There are 9 new legendary Pokemon in Gen 5, and a lot of them have different forms, so we have lots of raiding ahead of us. So for legendaries, I just want to quickly go over them and talk a little bit about raid counters, but of course, as they each get introduced as legendary raid bosses, we'll go into more detail, you know, one-on-one at that time. But first, let's start with the box legendaries, the mascots of Black and White version, RESHIRAM and ZEKROM. So ZEKROM is a dragon and electric type Pokemon, and as an electric type attacker, it's going to outclass the current best in Electivire and Raikou. But there is another electric type legendary Pokemon that'll probably come out later in Gen 5 that is going to outclass even ZEKROM as an electric type attacker, so keep that in mind. But as far as ZEKROM raids go, it's dragon and electric, so some of the Pokemon that you're going to want to get ready as counters, Excadrill, obviously we don't have that yet, but you can get ready with your Mamoswine. Ice is going to be super effective against Dragon and Mamoswine's Ground, so it's going to resist the electric type attacks from ZEKROM. Gardevoir with its new Charm and Dazzling Gleam moveset is going to be a great counter to all these dragons. And then of course, all the dragons. The dragons will be great counters to the dragons. Opposite ZEKROM, we have RESHIRAM. It's a dragon and fire type Pokemon. With Fire Fang and Overheat, it has just slightly better DPS than Blaziken, which is the current best fire type attacker, but it has so much better defensive stats, so it will take over as like the best overall fire type attacker, even though we don't really use fire type that much in raids. For raid counters, again, Excadrill. It's going to be good, I'm telling you. Archeops, the new guy. Rampardos, you probably already have one of those. And then, of course, all the dragons. Just the dragons are always good. Now, in Gen 5, there is a third dragon that completes the trio here. It's Kyurem, and it also has two forms where it fuses with Reshiram and ZEKROM. So black and white Kyurem is poised to be, well, they're all separate forms. I don't know how Niantic's going to handle these forms. They're all just going to get released separately, right? That's typically how it happens. But black and white Kyurem forms are Dragon and Ice type, and they will be some of the strongest Pokemon in Pokemon Go. Kyurem's going to outclass Rayquaza as a Dragon type attacker, so, you know, enjoy those shiny rays while you can. It's also going to outclass Mamoswine as an Ice type attacker. Even if it doesn't have an Ice type fast move, it'll still be the best Ice type counter against Dragon type legendary raid bosses. Because as a dragon, it's going to get stab on its dragon type quick moves, and if it gets like Ice Beam or whatever Ice type fast move, it's going to destroy these dragon types. So best raid counters to an Ice and Dragon type Pokemon, a lot of the same here. Archeops, Rampardos, Metagross, Meteor Mash Metagross is going to be a useful counter there. Gardevoir with Charm, of course, and of course the dragons, but be careful because those flying type dragons are going to take double super effective damage from Kyurem's Ice type moves. But by the time we see Kyurem, we should already have ZEKROM and Reshiram, both of which are not going to take double super effective damage from Ice-type moves. So Reshiram and ZEKROM will probably be good Dragon-type counters to Kyurem. The third legendary trio that we haven't talked about yet are the Forces of Nature, I think is their official title. Landorus, Thundurus, and Tornadus. Two of them are going to be good, and again, they all have two forms. One form, the Incarnate form, was introduced in Black and White, and then the Therian forms were introduced in Black and White 2, in which they leave their clouds, and somehow that changes their stats. So, Thundurus, Therian form Thundurus, is the Pokemon that I talked about earlier that's going to outclass ZEKROM as the best electric type. Even with weaker electric type moves, it will still be the best electric type, so this is definitely one to look forward to, and, you know, spend some time with your Electivire and Raikou now, because they're going to be outclassed come Thundurus. Thundurus is electric and flying type, just like Zapdos, so best raid counters are going to be Rampardos as a rock type, probably not Archeops, since it's going to take a ton of damage from electric type attacks, and Mamoswine. Mamoswine is an ice type, and of course as a ground type is going to resist electric type moves. The Therian form of Landorus is a ground and flying type Pokemon, and is set to outclass Excadrill as best ground type attacker. Now the good news is Landorus probably won't get released until much later into Gen 5, so Excadrill you're definitely going to want, especially if it gets released in one of the early waves of Gen 5. As a ground and flying type, the best counters are going to be ice types, especially Mamoswine, but all your ice types are going to be great counters to Landorus, both Incarnate and Therian form. And then we'll just quickly talk about Tornadus, but as a flying type, it's not great. It's pure flying, and even though the Therian form has wings, it doesn't learn either wing attack or sky attack, which means it's just not going to compete with flying types like Archeops or even Moltres. So there's a quick intro to some of the best attackers that are coming with Gen 5 in Pokemon Go. I hope you're excited. I know I am. We've got just a couple weeks left until these first Gen 5 Pokemon start rolling out in Pokemon Go. So I'm excited to see which of these Pokemon, if any, we'll see in the first wave, and also how long it takes to get the second and third and probably fourth wave of Gen 5 in Pokemon Go. But regardless, there's some Pokemon to look out for. Stay tuned, we'll go over PvP Pokemon in a future video, and, you know, maybe just some of my favorite Gen 5 Pokemon. And also, you know what? How about a live stream? I know I have mail time live stream to get to, but also there's kind of a tradition on the channel where whenever a new generation is coming, I'll just play the main series game for like 2, maybe 3 live streams and then never touch it again. But if you want to see a black and white, Pokemon Black and White version live stream, let me know, because it sounds fun. I probably won't get very far into the games before Gen 5 actually drops, and we just go back to playing Pokemon Go, but sounds fun, right? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this sort of classic trainer tips episode, and I'll see you next time.